Living under HOA rules can be a real pain, especially when you've had your driveway for over a decade, but apparently that doesn't mean much when you're dealing with a Karen. One morning I woke up to find a shiny black SUV parked right across my driveway. No note, no warning, just a big old obstacle blocking me in. I marched over to Karen's house and knocked on her door. She answered with this smug grin plastered on her face, claiming it was community parking enforcement. But here's the kicker. There were no signs, no rules, just her own twisted interpretation of how things should be. Frustrated, I called the HOA, hoping they'd sort this mess out. But nope, they hit me with the classic, "It's a private matter" line. Great, just great. So, I decided to take matters into my own hands. The next day, I rolled up with my trusty truck, loaded to the brim with concrete bags, enough to build a small patio, mind you. I parked that bad boy right in front of Karen's garage, smack dab in the middle of her front yard. And just to add a little spice, I slapped a sign on it that read, "Reserved for HOA Karma." Now you might think that was the end of it, but oh no, it was just the beginning. By the end of the week, Karen had to call in a tow truck to move my little parking spot. Meanwhile, word spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. People started cracking jokes about Karen's Karma parking lot. It was the talk of the town, and let me tell you, it felt good to see Karma in action. The HOA finally decided to step in, but not in the way Karen had hoped. They slapped her with a fine and told her she had to move her car. But here's the best part. Karen now has to park a whole block away every single day, and every time she walks past my driveway, she's reminded of how her little power trip backfired spectacularly. You know what they say, karma isn't always quiet. Sometimes it parks right in your face and honks its horn for good measure. This whole ordeal got me thinking about the absurdity of some HOA rules and the people who try to enforce them. It's like they get a little taste of power and suddenly think they're the supreme rulers of the cul-de-sac. But here's the thing. We're all just trying to live our lives in peace, and sometimes you need to stand up to the neighborhood bullies, even if they come disguised as concerned citizens. The aftermath of this parking showdown was pretty entertaining. Neighbors I'd never even spoken to before were coming up to me, giving me high fives and sharing their own Karen stories. It was like we'd formed this secret anti-Karen alliance, bonded by our shared experiences of dealing with unreasonable demands and petty power plays. One guy even offered to help me build that patio I'd planned with all those concrete bags. We had a good laugh about that. I told him I'd consider it if Karen ever decided to park in my driveway again, just to keep the karma flowing. The whole experience taught me a valuable lesson about standing up for yourself, even in the face of seemingly unbeatable HOA bureaucracy. Sometimes you've got to fight fire with fire, or in this case, fight parking with parking. It's not about being petty or seeking revenge. It's about sending a clear message that you won't be pushed around in your own neighborhood. As the dust settled and life returned to normal, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction every time I pulled into my now clear driveway. Karen might have thought she had the upper hand, but in the end, she was the one who got schooled in the art of neighborly etiquette. So if you ever find yourself facing off against a neighborhood Karen or an overzealous HOA, remember this tale. Sometimes, the best way to deal with unreasonable people is to give them a taste of their own medicine. Just make sure you're ready for the fallout, and maybe keep a few bags of concrete on hand, just in case. In the end, karma has a way of sorting things out, and in this case it came with a parking spot and a whole lot of neighborhood gossip. Who knew that a simple driveway dispute could turn into such an epic tale of suburban warfare? But that's life in the HOA jungle. You never know when you might need to channel your inner parking vigilante to defend your little piece of paradise.